What's up, everybody? Hey, let's talk bikes. Now, everybody knows that there is no such thing as the perfect motorcycle. Oh yes, there is, and it's this one right here, the KTM Super Duke R 1290. This bike is the perfect bike. Now this one's mine. It's a 22 Evo model, so it has the semi-active suspension. I love this bike so much, I can't even tell you. If there's such a thing as love at first ride, it was exactly what it was for me when I first got on this bike. I've owned lots of bikes, and I can tell you, I've never been so just thrilled with a motorcycle in my life. I have nothing bad to say about this bike. I've owned lots of different bikes. I've had street bikes, I've had cruisers, I've had race bikes. None of them compare to this bike. There have been, I could say probably one thing that's gone wrong, or one issue I've had with the bike since I've owned it, and I'll get into that later on. But it basically had to do with failure to start up, but I don't think that was the bike's problem at all. KTM, I don't know how you did it, but you created the perfect motorcycle. It's good in all situations. It's good in traffic, it's good on the street, it's good in the twisties, the mountains, flat ground. I've taken it on 2-day adventures where I was doing 300 miles a day. I ride it as my go-to everywhere I go around town. Love this bike. Now, there are those who complain about the bike. It has too much power, it's too herky-jerky on the street. I respectfully disagree with every person out there that makes negative comments about the performance and capabilities of this bike. I just don't believe it's true. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of the technical specs about the bike. I'll leave that to the engineers and the professors out there. I'm coming at this from the standpoint of a guy who rides motorcycles a lot and rides a lot of motorcycles and has a true love and passion for riding. And if that's you, keep watching, and I hope to really steer you in the direction if you're thinking about getting the KTM Super Duke R and you've heard bad things about it being uncontrollable or uncomfortable or what have you. I hope to change your mind on that through my personal experience. I love this bike, guys. It is the perfect bike. And if you ask me, the looks of the bike are just insane. Some people have a little bit of an issue with the Hornet looking headlamp. I kind of did it first too, but you know, it grew on me. But the rest of the styling of the bike just can't be beat, man. It's just beautiful. I love the trellis frame and how the motor is worked into the frame now to add the rigidity to the bike. The only, well, I wouldn't say the only, but I've done a couple of upgrades. Major one is this SC Project slip-on carbon fiber pipe or silencer that I put on, which I really like. I like the sound. I wanted something noisier than the stock pipe. The stock pipe is plenty good. I don't know that I really got much added performance benefit from it, but I did want it to be louder because I want to be heard on the road. Because, you know, drivers are just not looking for us out there. The seat, that would be your most common comments you get about this bike, is that the seat is okay. I'll agree with that, it's okay. But I'm 6'4", 240 pounds, and I can tell you that I will ride this bike all day long, and I just love it. The TFT is a work of art. It is very bright, very easy to see. And we'll get more into that later on in the video as to the functions and whatnot on the bike. But you can see how clear this TFT is. This is in a really bright, sunny day. There's a little bit of room on the handlebars to add stuff like your phone holder and, you know, things like that. I've got a GoPro mount on the handlebars here, but there's not a whole lot of extra room. The controls are very easy to manipulate and very intuitive. I'll get more to those as well during the riding portion of the video. The TFT is fully adjustable. You can adjust it forward, up and down, leaning. The handlebars are 4-position handlebars, like a lot of KTM bikes are. You can move them forward, backwards, and then, you know, get them where you want them. Honestly, I haven't touched anything, the TFT or the handlebars. They are right where they started, and I'm totally comfortable with them. I did put some bar end mirrors from the KTM Moto shop that I really think class up the look of the bike quite a bit, and actually they give a lot of good visibility. And then I put, of course, some ASV adjustable levers, and that's really about it. So the TFT is controlled with this dial here. If you push the right button, you go into the menu settings of the TFT. All right, so under trips and data, you have your trip 1, trip 2. You can reset that, and it basically gives you, you can see right now I'm getting about 47 miles to the gallon, which is a pretty good out of a 185 horsepower motorcycle, right? General info has your, general info, right? And tire air pressure, it has tire pressure sensors on it. Of course, they don't work unless the bike is moving. And then your service intervals, my next due is at 52. It actually has quite good service intervals. Extra functions like your spin adjuster, track mode, anti-wheelie mode, launch control, your MSR or motor slip regulation, and your quick shifter. And then I keep mine in track almost all the time. So we'll talk more about that during the ride. This is where you do all of your motor, your motor traction and your slip regulation adjustments. You got your ABS mode, road or supermoto. In supermoto, it allows you to turn off the ABS for your back brake so you can slide it. And then your quick shifter, which of course I just leave on all the time. Suspension settings, you have your damping, automatic, sport, street, comfort, and advanced. We'll talk more about those in the video. Your preload, auto high, auto standard, auto low, and manual. Talk more about those as well. And then anti-dive, I leave mine on so that the front end doesn't dive hard when I'm on the brakes. Settings, custom switches. Over here you have, you can see C2 and C1. You can actually set those custom switches to have your two primary functions that you like at your fingertip disposal, so you don't have to go into the menu here. You can Bluetooth it to your headphones or to your, to your phone. You got your headset type, display name, button illumination. You can adjust how light or dark you want it. Your shift light, you can adjust what RPMs you want your shift, and you have two of those, like a pre-warning and then a hey, it's time to shift light, right? Daytime running lights, clock date, units, language. Heated grips, that does not come with the tech pack. You have to get that separately. I don't have that, nor do I have the heated seat. And that's pretty much it for all of the menu options. So now that we've got all that said, let's go ahead and get it out on the road. I'm going to take it through street driving, city driving, the canyons, the mountains, some flat roads. Hopefully I'll get to all that today. It's a beautiful sunny day here in mid-October in Colorado. So let's get it out on the road and talk more about the bike. Okay, starting the bike is pretty straightforward. You have your ignition on switch right here. Now it's keyless ignition, so you have to have the key fob on you. Push the button. The bike will go through its electronics checks. Push down on the red butterfly here and let go, and the bike will start. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so the first thing I want to address was actually two things. The two most common things I hear about the bike are, one, it's just way too powerful and you'll get yourself in trouble with it. And the other is that it's just not comfortable on the street. Again, respectfully disagree with both of those. As you can see, I am in track mode, and wheelie mode or anti-wheelie mode is off. That's how I ride all the time, in track mode with wheelie mode off. For a beginner maybe who just doesn't have experience riding motorcycles, maybe I could see it, okay? But me,
And I'm not a racer. I'm just a guy who likes to ride bikes, like I said. I find that you get as much throttle as you ask for. So if I want to take off from a light quickly, and maybe I'll have the opportunity to do that here, I'll have to wait till I get to a red light. I can take off as fast as I like without wheel liftoff. Oops, ran out of here. Some people say leave it in wheelie mode on so you don't accidentally wheelie. I don't, because I like to be able to wheelie whenever I want to, and this bike will wheelie whenever you want to. So I leave anti-wheelie mode off so that whenever I leave a light and I want to wheelie, which is pretty much every time I leave a light, I have the ability to do so. But I don't have to. You see, I mean, I 0 to 60 in probably, I don't know, 3.5, 4 seconds there. The front wheel stayed on the ground the whole time. You just have to be reasonable with your throttle hand. Don't get me wrong, if you're silly and you grab a handful of throttle, you stand the risk of really losing it on this bike, no doubt about it. But as long as you're reasonable, I find this bike to be exactly what you want it to be at all times. If you want it to be a beast, grab some throttle. If you want it to just cruise through town, don't grab as much throttle. The other argument I hear a lot, or the other negative point about this bike, is that in city driving, street to street, it's just uncomfortable and vibrates a lot. I mean, it's got two great big pistons that are going up and down, right? And opposing each other. So yes, it vibrates a little bit. Not as horribly as I hear everybody saying, number one. And number two, well worth whatever vibrations you get out of it for the bike that you're sitting on top of. It's so awesome. The other thing about city driving or in-town driving is you really don't have to worry about what gear you're in. Third gear will get you through just about anything. You could be in third gear at 25 miles an hour, give it a twist, and you're passing whoever it is you are wanting to pass. So speaking of gears, let's talk about the quickshifter. In my opinion, this quickshifter is a work of art. I have a BMW 1250 GS that also has a quickshifter. I find it not enjoyable at all. In fact, I've kind of started just using my clutch most of the time now, because if you're not at the right RPM level, sometimes it doesn't want to shift, especially downshifting. Like if I'm cruising up to a light and I almost have to stand on the shifter to get it to go down into a lower gear. Going up, it's a mixed bag. Sometimes it works good, sometimes it doesn't. But the quick shifter on this bike, buttery smooth, and you can see I just went into neutral without hitting the clutch. On my GS, almost impossible to get it to just go into neutral with the quick shifter. This bike, every single time. I've only got it to go once on my BMW. I believe the quick shifter on this bike is hard to beat. The V-twin power, man, the torque, it's just instantaneous. You give it a little bit of gas, the wheel comes right up. That was like, I don't know, a quarter throttle. It does not like to have both wheels on the ground. And I really love that feature about this bike. It's just so much fun. Now, the power is hard to beat, I'll say that. And you know, it also means that you got to be careful. I'm in danger every time I get on this bike of losing my license. Honestly, I can't help it. The bike is just such fun. All right, so that's a little bit of city driving. No issues whatsoever, if you ask me. I'm going to try to get it out into some kind of curvy, more out-of-town roads. So while we're headed out of town here a little bit, I'll talk on the one issue that I've had with the bike so far. And I mean, I don't know, how many miles do we got on it now? We're at 4,030 miles. And I have had just one issue, and that is one morning I backed the bike out of the garage. I went to start it up. I hit the ignition on the butterfly and it started to crank, and then seemed like it was going to fire it up, and then just stopped. I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I tried it again, and it did it again. And then it did it a third time. On the fourth try, I gave it a little bit of throttle as the bike was firing up, and it started. It idled funky for a minute or two, and then it kind of found its groove, and I haven't had that problem since. Now, what could have caused it? Well, this was back in September, and since I've owned this bike, I picked it up in April of this year, but almost all of my riding, it's been a hot summer here in Colorado, almost all of my riding has been done in 90 to 100 degree heat. So the morning that I fired it up, it was about 52 degrees. And the day before, when I parked the bike in the garage, it was 96 degrees at the exact same time. So basically a 40, almost a 50 degree temperature difference overnight. And I think the computer was just used to a lot warmer, less dense air, and the airflow sensor probably detected that and didn't want the bike to start, thinking there was something wrong. The other thing that may have contributed to it was also the day before, or maybe a couple days before, I had put the new SC Project slip-on exhaust on. And when I put that on, I fired it up, and it idled a little wonky for a bit and then cleared right up. So I honestly don't think that was it, but it may have something to do with it. Now, it happened that time, and it has not happened since. And when I tell you that's the only single solitary issue I've had with the bike, I'm not kidding. That's it. Comfort-wise, so I'm 6'4", like I said, about 240 pounds. This bike is more comfortable than any bike I've ever had, except for my 1250 GS adventure bike, which better be the most comfortable, right? I've had several Harleys, lots of race bikes, quite a few street bikes. This bike beats them all. The seat is not the most premier seat that it comes with. You can get an aftermarket seat, but I have not found a reason to. And by comparison to my GS, I will tell you that on longer rides, my knees get sore quicker on the BMW than they do on this bike. Now, they will get sore because you can see your knees are pretty well tucked up. But for some reason, it just doesn't bother me too much. Now, my butt, yes, after about 200 miles, the butt will be a little a little sore. The BMW is more comfortable on the rear end, that's for sure. But I can take this bike, jump on it, and ride it until I need gas, which is about 180 miles. Jump off, fill up, get right back on, and go again. It's that comfortable. If you're worried about your height, don't. In my opinion, this is one of the more comfortable bikes you're ever going to get. Now granted, it's a super naked, so you're sitting a little bit more upright compared to a street or a sport bike, a super sport. But I just love the comfort of this bike. It's always comfortable, always. All right, let's go through the ride modes on the bike a little bit. As you can see on the TFT here, I'm in track mode, and you actually have to leave track mode or performance mode if you're in either of those. So what I'm going to do is hit the button, let off the throttle, and it goes to street by default. Okay. Now you have rain mode, and you can go through any of these modes on the fly while you're driving. You just have to close the throttle, and it will automatically shift into that or change into that ride mode that you've selected. So rain mode it's still got some power, but I would compare it to my BMW GS. But it's got enough, right? And it's designed obviously for the rain. And if you were a newer rider just getting used to this kind of bike, maybe you put it in rain mode for a little while, I don't know, and see how it goes, right? So, and then street mode gives you just a little bit more throttle response and a little bit more power. I believe street and sport mode have the same amount of power, and once you get into performance and track, that's when it opens up the full power of the motor, full response of the throttle, whatnot, and yada yada yada. All right, so sport mode, close the throttle, it changes into sport mode. Sport mode's pretty nice for cruising around town. I have found, and it could be my weight, and it could be because I live in Colorado at 6,000 feet, but in sport mode I cannot power up a wheelie in first gear. So again, I'm not real sure as to why, but I imagine it's got something to do with the altitude up here. Okay, performance mode. Close the throttle. In performance mode, you have your throttle. You can set your throttle for track, sport, or street. I always leave it in track. Anti-wheelie mode, you can have it on or off. Again, I always leave mine in off. You have launch control that you can use. Now, if I was going to do a launch, I would put the anti-wheelie mode on for sure. And even in anti-wheelie mode, the front end comes up quite a bit, but the electronics won't allow it to come up too far. But performance mode, you also have your traction control, your spin rate, which basically, if I'm not mistaken, I've gotten this one wrong in the past between MSR, the motor slip regulation, and the traction control. The number 4 it's 1 through 9. You know, 1 being the least amount of spin control, so your wheel can slide, and number 9 being the most. And the way you adjust that is with the cruise control knobs here on the handlebar. It was kind of a neat thing KTM did, where it kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. When you have the cruise control, you can see it here, and then when I push it, you'll see it on the TFT, the little green speedometer pops up. When you have cruise control on, you can set the cruise control with these buttons. When cruise control is off, then you can adjust your spin. And no, those are only in performance and track mode. Now again, to leave performance mode, you have to go down here to where it says leave performance mode, kill the throttle, it goes back to street. I'm going to go to track mode. And the anti-wheelie, launch control, all that stuff is the same in track mode. So those are your modes. I have ridden this bike in the rain. Me and my girlfriend Janine, we took a trip on she has a KTM 890 Duke, and we took a trip up to, well, basically a long day trip around up through Winter Park and ski resorts and stuff like that, and we got caught in a downpour. I left it in track mode. I just was real gentle with the throttle, and that was fine. I didn't have any problem with it. Yeah, this thing is a beast. It's so fast and so instantaneous. One of the faster bikes I ever had was a ZX-10. That off of the line, it was such a dog, honestly, until it got up to about 10,000 RPMs. Then it would try to run out from underneath you. And I just like the responsiveness of this V-twin so much more. I just love this bike, man. I can't say enough about it. So one other modification I did to the bike I forgot to mention was I put a steering stabilizer or steering dampener, a new one, on. The KTM dampener is notoriously shitty. Now I guess you can pull it off, pull the rod out and fill it with some thicker gear oil and make it a little bit better. But I just decided, you know, I paid so much money for this bike. If KTM makes a better one and they're not putting it on there, I don't want to buy it. So I bought another one from an Italian race company called Mupo. And if you're interested, drop a comment. It's a progressive, selectable damper, and I'm really happy with it. But at any rate, one thing I found on this bike was when I would get it up to about 100 miles an hour, it would develop a speed wobble. And you know, the first couple times I tried to push through it and see if it would recover, but it wasn't. It was making me uncomfortable, so I backed off. I put the Mupo damper on there, and that helped a little bit. But to be honest, the thing that I found that helped the most was I had the front tires at the factory recommended pressure setting at 36. I found that when I bumped it up to 38 PSI, that speed wobble disappeared. So that's pretty much what I run mine at. Now I run my tires at 38 PSI front and back, and I have found that that makes a huge difference for me. So if you do get one of these, just know that the damper is not the greatest, and the tire issue could be individual to my bike. Hard to say. I've not heard anybody else changing their pressure and fixing that problem, but I have heard of a lot of people changing out their dampers. So I guess that's two strikes, right? One where it didn't start, and then the damper. But that's a known issue with the KTMs, or with the Super Dukes, I should say. I knew about it when I bought it. I knew I was going to have to replace it. I love the color on the wheels. The orange is so awesome, you know, matching the frame, obviously. Just, again, so happy with this bike. So obviously the Super Duke has garnered quite a reputation for being one of the premier hooligan bikes, and rightfully so. But truthfully, I think this bike is so equally capable in the twisty roads, you know, road racing kind of conditions, for, you know, a couple of reasons. One is these great big Brembo brakes that will stop this bike on a dime. So you can really wait until the very last moment to jam on the brakes and lean it into the corner. And then secondly is this powerful V-twin, this torquey monster that will just pull you right out of the backside of the corner. It's just, and it doesn't really matter what gear you're in. Well, I mean, of course it does matter, but it's not nearly as crucial as with the leader bikes and the inline fours, where you really got to be in that power band to truly to truly be able to keep up. Now, of course, you know, being able to stop really fast and being able to go really fast means you got to have the tires that'll do it. And so this bike, the 2022, comes with the Bridgestone Battle Axe S22s, which really are fantastic tires. I like them a lot. I just replaced my back tire with about 4,000 miles on it, which, yeah, it's really not too bad considering the beating I give this bike. I didn't replace the front. The front hasn't spent near as much time on the ground, so I left that one on there. When I do change tires again, I'm going to put a set of Pirellis on, because I don't like getting more than a few hundred miles of tire, right? So I'm going to put those nice sticky Pirelli road tire or racing tires on there. I'd rather change out tires more often and know that I have a good set of sticky rubber under me. That is not to say that these Bridgestones are not fantastic tires, because they really are. And you know, like I was saying before, it's just so comfortable to ride this bike aggressively, whereas with the super bikes, at least for me, man, I would get so tired, because when you're braking, you're putting all that pressure on your wrists and your shoulders, and you're just bent over the whole time. Yeah, you don't have the wind protection on this bike like you do on the super bikes, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not doing 150 miles an hour through here. One thing I will say is that if you are doing 85-90 miles an hour down the highway, the wind will start to beat on you for sure. But because this bike doesn't even have a small little windscreen, the wind you get is very clean. Going down the freeway, I don't get buffeted all over the place. It's just windy, but that's it. It's clean wind. So the speed limit here is 30. It's awful hard to do 30 here. I don't think the law enforcement guys, they know that, and they're pretty cool, so. So, as I may have mentioned before, I love this bike. I think it is the ultimate everything bike. It does everything well, whether it's carving through canyons, city streets, riding down the highway. It just does it all, and it does it all well. If you are thinking about picking up a Super Duke, I highly encourage it. It is a beautiful, beautiful bike to ride. So much fun. I've never, not once, ridden this motorcycle and not just been overjoyed to be on it. That being said, KTM, if you're listening, come on, man, how about some sponsorship or something? Biggest fan here, biggest fan. I'm kidding, but and I am in no way affiliated with KTM other than my love for their motorcycles. This is not the only one that I have. I really do love their product. So anyways, I hope that this video was informative for those of you who are thinking about it and maybe want to pick one up and just kind of on the fence and not sure about the bike, about whether it's for you. Again, if you can be sane, responsible with your throttle hand, you will like this bike. It's fantastic. So if you liked the video, please make sure and drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any comments, good or bad, please leave them in the comments section. I really do enjoy hearing from everybody. And if you have suggestions as how to make this channel better, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. So anyways, until the next time, get out there and ride, and hope to run into you guys on the street someday.